Heartwarming journey. Puppy's amazing comeback after a shocking financial setback revealed. In the heart of a small Midwestern town, a determined single mother named Sarah fought fiercely against the rolling tide of struggles that threatened to engulf her family. With the scent of freshly mown grass hanging in the crisp air and laughter of children echoing down the streets, she felt the weight of her world pressing heavily on her shoulders. At 32, Sarah balanced multiple odd jobs: a waitress, a cleaning lady, and sometimes a late-night cashier, all to keep her little household afloat after losing her stable office job. But as autumn leaves began to fall, winter's chill crept closer, and with it came an eviction notice that felt like the end of everything. Lucas, her 8-year-old son, remained a beacon of light, clutching his dreams of a better life tightly to his heart. He had an innocence that inspired hope even in the darkest moments, and one day, on his way home from school, he stumbled across an abandoned puppy shivering by the fence. With sparkling eyes, Lucas named him Max, and within moments, the little creature transformed their fragile family unit, filling their home with exuberant chaos and love. As Sarah worked tirelessly, often late into the night, Lucas found solace in Max's playful antics. Together they created grand tales of dog shows and trophies, where Lucas and Max would become local heroes. Their rural community thrived on the bonds of unity and support. Neighbors rallied around Sarah, dropping off meals and offering help with chores, turning strangers into an extended family at a time when she needed it most. But as the holidays approached, a fresh wave of dread washed over Sarah. After a month of exhausting work that brought meager paychecks, the harsh words of that eviction notice echoed in her mind. The bills stacked higher as Lucas' dream of training Max reminded her of everything they could potentially lose. How could she choose between keeping a roof over their heads and investing in her son's dreams? Tension mounted in their small kitchen, where silence hung thick in the air. Lucas's laughter dimmed as he sensed his mother's despair. Desperate to keep Max and save their family, he felt a swirl of confusion and anger toward her when she dismissed his daydreams of dog shows, her shoulders hunched with the weight of reality. Then one fateful night, a neighborhood scuffle sent Max tumbling, bloodied and whimpering, his future suddenly uncertain and their dimly lit home. Sarah faced a heart-wrenching decision: seek help or dig deeper into her dwindling reserves of resilience. The frost clung stubbornly to their windows, mirroring the frost settling in her heart. Would she find a way to save her family? Or would the mounting pressures extinguish the flame of hope Max represented? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Lucas clutched Max close, refusing to let go, the glimmer of determination blazed in his little eyes. And there, in the shadow of uncertainty, while the world outside continued spinning, they both felt the quiet shift in the air, a moment that would change everything. Would Sarah find the strength to fight for both their dreams? Or would they lose sight of hope in their darkest hour? The stakes were high, the future uncertain, and the warmth of community lingered like a hushed promise between them. The air in the small living room was thick with a mix of hope and desperation. Sarah knelt beside Lucas and Max, her hands trembling as she reached out to check the puppy's wounds. His fur felt sticky, and the whimper he gave as she brushed against the hurt made her heart ache. What if he didn't heal? What if she couldn't afford the vet bills? The weight of her thoughts pressed against her chest, making it hard to breathe. "Mom, we have to take him to the vet," Lucas said, his tiny voice steady but laced with worry. He had known something was wrong the minute Max collapsed. 1,000 hopes hung on that puppy, stitched together by their combined dreams of a brighter future. "I know, sweetheart. I know," she whispered, swallowing back tears. The thought of scrounging together just enough to keep a roof over their heads, and now adding vet bills, seemed impossible. But looking into Lucas's eyes, she couldn't bear to say no. "Not again. We'll figure it out. Let me call and see how much it would cost." After a tense few minutes on the phone, those numbers hung heavy in the air. Yet Sarah forced a smile for Lucas. "It's more than I expected, but we have to do this for Max." Lucas beamed, and for a brief moment, it felt like a small victory against the shadows threatening to consume them. The next morning, as Sarah scoured the local classifieds for any job that might bring in a few extra bucks, she stumbled upon a community event flyer pinned to the board at the coffee shop where she worked. A dog show was scheduled for the weekend, and the winners would receive prizes. "Lucas," she called out, her voice suddenly full of excitement. "What if we enter Max in this dog show?" Lucas's eyes sparkled, alive with the thrill of possibility. "Mom, could we really do that? It might be just the thing to lift our spirits. And it could bring in some prize money," she replied, her heart quickening at the thought. "Besides, it would mean the world to both of us." In the following days, training sessions took on a new rhythm. They practiced whenever they could, Lucas guiding Max through little hurdles and tricks, laughing and cheering with every successful jump. Each tiny triumph built their spirits. It was a temporary escape from the cold reality waiting for them outside. A cocoon of warmth where dreams could sprout, even against the harshest of odds. As Saturday drew nearer, Sarah pushed her fears aside. The community buzzed with anticipation, and she could feel the shift in the atmosphere, a tiny flame igniting hope in her heart. But as she and Lucas arrived at the dog show, the crowd and competition loomed large before them. The seats were filled with polished dog owners and their pristine pets, all expertly prepared for the spotlight. Doubt gnawed at her once again. Could they really compete? Would they even belong here? "Mom, look at those dogs. They're so big," Lucas whispered, flooding his voice as he clutched Max's leash tighter. "Just remember, we're here for fun and to help. Max winning is just the cherry on top," she replied, trying to keep her nerves in check. And just then, as they walked to their spot, a familiar face appeared from the crowd. Mrs. Thompson, their kind-hearted neighbor, who had brought over meals just weeks before. She spotted them and waved, her smile wide enough to slice through their uncertainty. "Hey there, you two. Ready to shine?" Sarah's heart warmed at the support. Maybe, just maybe, they could pull through this together. As the announcer's voice boomed through the speakers, excitement swelled around them. Lucas's hand tightened on Max's leash, and the moment stood still, echoing with unspoken anticipation. Would this be their moment of truth? Would they find the strength to push through their darkest fears and reclaim some light on the other side? Just as the show was about to begin, a familiar kind of tension filled the air, and Sarah's heart skipped. What if this didn't go the way they hoped? Would they be able to rise again even if they lost everything? The announcer's voice cut through the electric crowd, announcing the start of the dog show. Sarah felt a mix of anxiety and excitement swirl inside her. It was as if the whole world was holding its breath, right there with them. She glanced down at Max, who was wagging his tail despite his injuries, his spirit unbroken. It was contagious. Lucas, eyes bright and hopeful, seemed to draw strength from their little dog. "Remember, buddy," Lucas whispered to Max, kneeling to scratch behind his ears, "just do your best." As they lined up with the other contestants, Sarah couldn't help but compare Max with the other dogs. They were all groomed to perfection, coats glistening in the sun, handlers dressed in matching outfits. Max's scruffy fur was still matted from his ordeal, and Sarah's heart sank a little. But then she caught sight of Lucas bouncing on his toes, his faith unwavering. "Look, Mom. Max is great just the way he is," he proclaimed, lifting his chin defiantly. "You're right," Sarah agreed, her heart swelling. "Yes, our Max, and that's enough." The first round was an obstacle course, and as their turn approached, nerves twisted Sarah's stomach. She held her breath as Lucas and Max stepped forward. The whistle blew and they were off. Lucas guided Max with confidence, their connection palpable. They whisked through the small maze of hurdles, and with each hurdle jumped, cheers erupted from the crowd. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut for a moment, unable to watch. When she opened them, Lucas and Max were nearing the final hurdle. They were doing it. They were shining. "Go, Max!" Sarah shouted, her voice rising above the crowd. Max leaped with all he had, clearing the last obstacle with surprising agility. The crowd erupted into applause and Lucas laughed, his joy spilling over. They had done it. For a heartbeat, all Sarah's worries fell away. She watched as Lucas embraced Max, their bond stronger than ever. Then it was time for the talent display. Each dog showcased their unique skills, and Sarah's heart raced as she realized they were up next. Lucas had taught Max to shake paws, roll over, and even spin. It was a simple routine quite unlike the extravagant performances around them, but it was theirs. With every trick, Sarah saw brief flickers of doubt in the judge's eyes, but as each trick landed, she sensed the shift. The cheers from the crowd swelled, their support giving them wings. "Let us finish strong," Lucas yelled, a sparkle in his eyes as he urged Max for the final rollover. Max executed the move flawlessly, landing with a playful thump. The audience erupted again, and Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. This was not just a performance. It was a celebration of resilience, of love. As they exited the stage, Lucas grabbed Sarah's hand tightly. "Did you see? We were amazing, Mom." "Yes, we were," she said, pulling him into a hug. But their moment of triumph was cut short when the announcer's voice boomed through the speaker once more. "And now we present the winners." Her heart raced. The prize could change everything. It could mean veterinary bills paid, more time with Max, a cushion against the storms of life. Would they hear their names? As the finalists were announced, time stretched. Each heartbeat felt heavy. Sarah realized that whether they won or not, they had already gained so much more than a trophy or a prize. But then a name was called. It wasn't theirs. Her heart sank, and she thought of all the sacrifices they had made. She turned to Lucas, ready to wrap him in solace. But before she could say anything, she noticed his eyes, wide with surprise and disbelief. "Mom, look," he gasped, pointing at the stage where a small award was being handed out that hadn't been mentioned. "The People's Choice Award. They have that too." "What?" Sarah's heart soared again as she glanced at the judges, feeling a swell of anticipation. Would this be the recognition they desperately needed? Just as hope ignited once more, Lucas squeezed her hand. "We should cheer for whoever wins, right? It's what we came for." He was right. Together they had already won so much. As the name was called, Sarah watched, wondering if this could be the start of a new chapter. But little did she know, this was just the beginning of an unexpected journey, one that would lead them to face new challenges and discover the strength they never knew they had. What awaited them beyond this moment? Only time would tell. The crowd buzzed with excitement, but Sarah felt like she was frozen in time. The announcer cleared his throat, and a hush fell over the audience. "And the winner of the People's Choice Award is," he paused dramatically, "Max and Lucas." In that moment it was like the world blinked back into focus. Lucas erupted with joy, his little body bouncing as he cheered. "We did it. We really did it, Mom." He dashed toward the stage, his eyes sparkling like fireworks. Sarah stood rooted to the spot, disbelief washing over her. Max, the scruffy little dog who had fought through so much, had somehow captured the hearts of everyone? Unbelievable. Lucas reached the stage, radiating pride as he accepted the shiny, whimsical trophy. Max stood at his feet, tongue hanging out and tail wagging like it could fly. In that moment they were heroes. Sarah finally made her way to the stage, her heart swelling with pure, undiluted joy. She enveloped both Max and Lucas in her arms, grounding herself in the warmth of their embrace. "I knew you could do it, my champions," she whispered, spreading her joy over the two. As they headed backstage, the cheers of the crowd lingered in the air like magic. Sarah couldn't shake off the feeling of hope that bounced around inside her chest. This little trophy didn't just mean some validation. It felt like a retelling of their story, a story of struggle, healing, and unshakable love. After the show, they settled outside under the shade of a tree, sharing slices of cake from the dog show's celebration table. Lucas laughed, crumbs flying, as he asked, "Can we take Max to the beach next weekend? He would love to run in the sand." "Absolutely," Sarah replied, her heart brimming. "We'll make a whole day of it. Just us and Max." The thought of sunshine, ocean waves, and laughter felt so incredibly liberating. With their minds on the beach, they were able to push aside the grim financial worries that lingered like storm clouds above them. But as the sweetness of that moment enveloped her, Sarah couldn't shake the nagging realization of their mounting bills. Just because things felt bright now didn't mean that reality wouldn't press down on them again. She glanced at Lucas, who was still enthusiastically telling Max about all the adventures they would have. Would they be able to keep up this spirit? Would the support be enough to turn things around? With thoughts swirling, Sarah felt a determination form. They could find ways to share their story, involve the community, and maybe, just maybe, rally enough support to lighten their load. And it had already begun, hadn't it? With this surprise recognition, there was a renewed hope. As the sun began to set, streaks of orange and purple painted the sky. Let us find some new tricks for you, Max, Lucas said, bouncing back into focus. The moment was delightful but underscored by an undeniable reality. Let us make our own video too. Lucas continued, his imagination running wild. We can show everyone how special Max is. Maybe we can get more people interested in adopting dogs like him. With Lucas dreaming big, Sarah felt her heart flutter again. Maybe this was how they could start a real change. But would their message resonate? Could they inspire others like they had hoped? Before she could respond, Lucas's excitement burst forth. We should call Mrs. Thompson. She knows everyone in town. Yes, that is a great idea. Sarah agreed, music to her ears. As they walked to the car with Max trotting beside them, her stomach twisted with anticipation. This was just the beginning. They were standing at the edge of something much larger than they had ever imagined. Challenges awaited, but they were ready to face them together. What new paths would they discover now? What would they create as a family? How could their little dog lead them into the wider world beyond? The week that followed the award was a whirlwind. Sarah felt like life was on fast forward, but in the best way possible. Lucas couldn't stop talking about their plans, his enthusiasm infectious. Let's make the video today, Mom. The later we wait, the less time we have to get it ready. Every day after school, they would dive into brainstorming sessions. With paper strewn across the living room floor, they sketched ideas, desperate to showcase Max's charm. Lucas's creativity knew no bounds, and Sarah's heart swelled as he mapped out their story, how a scruffy pup changed their lives, spread joy in the neighborhood, and proved that love can overcome anything. One afternoon, they snagged a little bit of time to shoot their first video. Lucas held the camera, his little fingers fumbling with the controls as he focused on Max performing a trick. All right, buddy. Roll over for us, he instructed. Max, always eager to please, wiggled and tumbled, earning giggles and applause from Lucas. As Sarah watched them, the weight of their reality crept into the edges of her mind. She pushed away the fear momentarily. This was their moment, the pure laughter and love was undeniable. You two are amazing, she exclaimed, capturing the joy of the moment. After a few more fun attempts and laughing fits, they finally hit the mark. The video captured their bond perfectly, turning a simple home filming into a heartfelt testimony of their journey. Excited to share their story, they quickly uploaded it to social media. Within hours, messages started flooding in. Friends, neighbors, even some family were sharing it, expressing support and love. This is beautiful. One message read, "You guys are such an inspiration." Another said. Lucas grinned from ear to ear. Look, Mom. People love Max. He bounced around the living room. And in that moment, Sarah felt that familiar warmth. This was what they were meant to do, shine a light on love, rescue, and the beauty of second chances. But then came a message that stopped her heart. It was from Mrs. Thompson, their neighbor, and an avid animal lover. Sarah, this is wonderful. We should organize a community event to promote dog adoptions in town. I can use my connections. Her heart fluttered. Sarah felt the storm clouds of responsibility push down harder. What if it becomes too much? What if we don't have enough volunteers or funds? What if? The uncertainty crept in with every thought. But Lucas interrupted her worry. Mom, the beach. Let us talk about that first. If the community sees how great Max is, they'll want to help. His innocent determination grounded her fears, pulling her back into the moment. You're right, buddy, she replied, a smile breaking through the clouds. Let us give it our all. That evening, as they sat together planning the event, a sense of purpose blossomed in Sarah. With Lucas's excitement fueling her, she could feel a transformation stirring within her, a shift from worry to action. The idea of organizing a dog adoption fair ignited a flicker of hope. Could this be the turning point for them? Could they inspire a community of dog lovers to join their cause? As dusk set in once more, and the day wound down, Sarah found herself dreaming big. She imagined the fair, the laughter, the joy, the families adopting dogs like Max who could change lives. But a thought lingered. Would they be able to pull it off? What hurdles lay in wait? With anticipation, she knew they had just taken the first step into something extraordinary, igniting a spark of potential that might lead them to the support they desperately needed. Would they forge a deeper connection with their community? Or would the challenges prove too great? The questions echoed in her heart as she finally tucked Lucas in for the night. What if this was the opportunity they'd been searching for? The sun peeked over the horizon the next morning, bathing the kitchen in golden light. Sarah stood at the counter, a steaming mug of coffee in her hand. She watched Lucas pour cereal into a bowl, only occasionally glancing at the phone resting on the table, a reminder of the hope they had started to build together. "Do you think Mrs. Thompson is right?" Lucas asked, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Do you really think the whole town will want to help?" His innocence filled Sarah with both hope and apprehension. "Of course they will, honey. We just have to show them how important this is." As they ate breakfast, they talked about more ideas for the event. Lucas suggested a puppy parade, and Sarah couldn't help but giggle at the image of Max trotting down the street, tail wagging and tongue out. What a star he'd be. After breakfast, they put together a list. Flyers, signs, volunteers, food. It was a long list, but Lucas's excitement made it feel manageable. They mapped out how they would share the flyer across social media, hoping to reach animal lovers far and wide. But deep down, Sarah's anxiety lingered. What if no one showed up? They were stepping into unknown territory. Later, while Lucas was at school, Sarah busied herself with the details. She went to the community center and met with Mrs. Thompson, who was already bubbling with ideas. "We can set up donation stations, have local businesses sponsor the event, and even create games for the kids," Mrs. Thompson exclaimed, her energy filling the room. "Sounds amazing," Sarah replied, though her stomach fluttered at the thought of relying on others. What if nobody donated? What if the businesses turned them down? "You're doing the right thing, Sarah. People love to help when they know there's a cause behind it. Just remember, you're not alone in this." Mrs. Thompson's words ignited a tiny spark of strength within Sarah as the weeks progressed. They poured their heart into every detail. Lucas made his own promotional posters featuring Max's photo, adorned with colorful paw prints. They launched a countdown on social media, building anticipation with each passing day. Friends were sharing their posts, and slowly, excitement started to buzz through the community. However, with each like, each share, came the creeping doubt that sometimes engulfed Sarah. Would the turnout reflect all their effort? Would the community rally behind them? Or would it become a disappointment? Days turned into a blur, filled with calls and meetings. There were moments when fear threatened to drown her enthusiasm, moments she had to push through the panic bubbling up in her chest. But every time she saw Lucas's face, filled with hope and joy, it brought her back to why they were doing this. For Max and for the other dogs waiting for homes. Finally, the day of the event arrived. The morning felt surreal. They set up colorful tents and decorations. The smell of hot dogs and popcorn wafted through the air. Lucas was buzzing with energy, darting around introducing Max like a proud parent. As the crowd began to gather, Sarah stood still for a moment, blinking against the sunlight, feeling overwhelmed. Would they reach their goal? Would this just be another day? But the moment she caught a glimpse of the first family approaching the booth, her heart soared. They were there. Maybe they would pull this off after all. Just then, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a message from Mrs. Thompson that read, "Great news. Local news will be covering the event." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. That could change everything. Could this really be the moment they had been waiting for? Or would it all unravel in an unexpected way? Uncertainty fogged her mind as she turned to Lucas, whose smile shone brighter than ever. This was their opportunity, but would it be the breakthrough they dreamt of? Or a journey filled with more challenges? The crowd thickened as more families arrived, laughter and chatter mixing with the sizzling sounds from the food stalls. Sarah felt a mix of excitement and fluttering nerves in her stomach. She watched children running with balloons, their laughter infectious. Lucas, ever the enthusiastic host, was showing Max off to anyone who would kneel down to give him attention. "Look at him, Mom," Lucas exclaimed, his voice ringing with joy. "He's like a superstar." Sarah chuckled, feeling the warmth of his exuberance envelop her like a cozy blanket. Just then, a woman approached their booth, her 2 children in tow. A sweet golden retriever followed close behind, wagging its tail. "Is this Max?" she asked, her eyes lighting up as she crouched down, welcoming the puppy's affectionate licks. "Yes," Lucas beamed, "he needs a forever home." Sarah could hardly contain her excitement. This was it, people were genuinely interested. As the sign-ups for volunteers started filling up, Sarah caught sight of Mrs. Thompson moving through the crowd, her energy radiating as she spoke with families. They were all here, engaged and eager to learn about the dogs available for adoption. But just as Sarah began to relax, her gaze landed on the local news camera crew. They were setting up a shot directly across from their booth. Suddenly, a wave of self-doubt crashed over her. What if she flubbed her words in front of the camera? What if the event received coverage for the wrong reasons? Hey, Lucas tugged at her sleeve, his innocent gaze breaking her spiral of thoughts. Maybe we'll be on TV. His excitement broke through Sarah's anxiety, reminding her of how brave they had both been. You're right, she said, mustering a smile. It's a chance to show everyone how important this is. People started to gather, some with their pets, others simply looking to enjoy the festive atmosphere. Sarah pushed her worries aside, focusing on the moment at hand. This was a collaboration of hearts and smiles, a manifestation of their dreams for Max and his friends. A local business owner approached and introduced himself. I saw your flyer and wanted to help, he said, handing her a large envelope. This is for the event. I can also provide some food for the next weekend South adoption drive. Tears pricked at Sarah's eyes, but she blinked them away. Thank you so much. This means everything. As the afternoon rolled on, the booth was buzzing with hopeful conversations and laughter. Families shared their love for pets, while Lucas energetically demonstrated Max's tricks. It felt like a dream one Sarah never wanted to end. But somewhere in the back of her mind, the uncertainties lingered. What if tomorrow didn't measure up? What if, after all this effort, they didn't find homes for the dogs? Just as she was about to voice her worries to Lucas, the news crew approached. Would you like to say a few words about the event? The interviewer smiled brightly, holding the microphone out toward her. Sarah's heart raced. This was her moment. She took a deep breath, glancing at Lucas, who nodded with encouragement. Sure. She stammered, feeling the weight of everyone watching. But as she opened her mouth to speak, her voice trembled with emotion. Today is about second chances for these animals and for all of us. Together we can create change. Not just for dogs like Max, but for our community. Every little bit helps, and love is what it's all about. She saw heads nodding and smiles encouraging. This was her truth. As she spoke, the crowd began to ripple with energy, responding to her message. Sarah's heart swelled. Maybe, just maybe, they could do this. But before she could exhale, a shout echoed from across the field. Look, it's the competition. A rival organization had just pulled up, festooned with bright banners and a truck full of puppies. Suddenly, the peaceful atmosphere shifted as whispers spread among the crowd. Sarah's stomach dropped. This wasn't just a celebration anymore. It was turning into a showdown. Would they hold their ground? Would they rise above this challenge together, or would doubts sweep back in, threatening everything they had worked for? The stakes had just gotten higher and uncertainty loomed large. A wave of tension rippled through the crowd as they turned their heads toward the new arrival. Bright banners flapped in the breeze, the colors stark against the canvas of Sarah's hopeful day. The rival organization's truck gleamed in the sunlight, filled to the brim with puppies that cried out for attention. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The carefree day she envisioned was suddenly shadowed by a contest for hearts and homes. Would they be able to compete against a fleet of adorable puppies? Look, Mom. Puppies. Lucas pointed, his excitement palpable, but Sarah felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Yeah, I see them, she replied, forcing a smile. It was so easy to feel defeated in that moment. But then she noticed something: a group of volunteers from the rival organization gathering at their booth, whispering amongst themselves. They were laughing, seemingly unfazed by the competition. Sarah felt the flicker of resilience. They had strength too. Their love for animals had brought them here, and they wouldn't back down just because another group had arrived. Lucas, she said, kneeling to meet his eyes. I need you to help me ensure everyone knows about Max and our other dogs. Let us show them how amazing they are. His face lit up with determination. Okay, let us do this. They set to work, gathering flyers and giving Max a little more attention. Lucas demonstrated more of the tricks he had taught Max, each successful command earning claps and cheers from onlookers. The crowd began to shift back toward them, laughter blossoming once more. As the afternoon wore on, the energy in the air began to change again. Some families, initially drawn to the crowd of puppies, turned their gaze back to Sarah and Lucas. Their warmth and genuine love for Max was infectious. Conversation sparked. Shared smiles transformed anxiety into hope. But then, a loud voice rang out, cutting through the cheerful chatter. "Excuse me. May I have your attention?" The announcer from the rival group stood at the microphone, announcing their upcoming puppy adoption bonanza, adding an edge of urgency to the air. Sarah felt her pulse quicken, fighting against the rising tide of doubt. What if they didn't compete? What if they lost everything? But just as despair threatened to creep back in, the volunteers from her booth united around her. Mrs. Thompson stepped forward, taking charge. "Can we share a few more words about our mission?" she asked, inspiring trust and loyalty with just her presence. Sarah watched, moved, as Mrs. Thompson spoke passionately about the importance of animal rescue. The sense of community flooded her heart. They weren't fighting alone with Lucas and Max. They had each other, and together, they held strength as the afternoon sunlight began to wane. Sarah took a deep breath, letting the warmth and support of those around her fill the gaps of uncertainty. Courage surged through her. This was about something larger than just the dogs. It was about the people who needed their love. But just then she glanced back toward the rival team and froze. There was one puppy in particular, a scruffy little guy with big brown eyes that seemed to be watching her. Instinctively, Sarah felt a pull. What if they could help him too? What if today was truly about second chances for all? "Lucas, look at that puppy," she exclaimed, pointing toward the rival booth. Lucas turned, his excitement morphing into curiosity. "Can we help him? Can we save him too?" As she looked into Lucas's hopeful eyes, Sarah understood that today was not just about Max. It was about protecting every vulnerable creature out there, no matter where they came from. But as Sarah made her way over to the other booth, anticipation and anxiety churned in her stomach. What would happen when she approached this new obstacle? Would they be met with open hearts, or would they close ranks? It felt like she was on the edge of something profound, and the answer loomed closer than ever. Sarah stepped closer, her hands trembling slightly at her sides. The sunlight danced on the rival booth's colorful decorations, but her focus was solely on the scruffy puppy with the soulful brown eyes. It was as if he could sense her approach, his little tail wagging cautiously as he tilted his head. "Are you ready, buddy?" she muttered, more to herself than to Lucas. She felt a deep connection to this pup, a kind of longing she could hardly name. From afar, the rival organization's volunteers were busy chatting, oblivious to the spark of empathy growing in her heart. "Mom, can we really help him?" Lucas's voice nudged her back to reality, his bright blue eyes mirroring her own exhilaration mixed with fear. Sarah squared her shoulders, steeling herself. "Let us find out." As she walked towards the bustling booth, all the noise faded slightly. The laughter, the chatter, even the cries of the other puppies blended into a distant hum. Her focus sharpened on the puppy, who seemed to be the loudest voice of all. "Excuse me," she called out, breaking into the group. The laughter quieted and turned toward her. "I've been looking at that little guy," she pointed, "and I think he deserves a chance to." A tall woman with bright red hair stepped forward, her expression a mix of surprise and curiosity. "Oh, you like Rufus? He's a sweetheart but needs some extra TLC. He had a rough start. We're still looking for the right home for him. He deserves a loving family," Sarah replied, her voice gaining strength. "Like the rest of these dogs. I know what it's like to want the best for them. Our mission is all about rescuing the ones that need it most." The crowd began to shift again, interest peaking as they overheard the conversation. "Exactly," exclaimed a young woman from Sarah's own team, stepping in. "We're all trying to make a difference here, and Rufus deserves that too." A murmur spread through the listeners, and Sarah couldn't help but feel excitement bubble up within her. Maybe they weren't so different after all. The love for these animals united them, even if their organizations stood on opposite sides. "I know you're doing your best," Sarah continued, her heart racing. "But what if we helped each other, shared ideas? Maybe we can find a solution together? Could we make it about collaboration instead of competition?" The tall woman looked surprised, her brows knitting together in thought. "You really think people would be open to that? Why not? Just look at these dogs, look how much love we all have to give. It's not just about adoption today. It's about our mission and connecting with those families who need a cuddly friend." Lucas chimed in, his voice clear and unwavering. The crowd began to buzz again, and Sarah felt a warmth spread through her chest. "Let us join forces for this little one and others like him," she urged, her heart drumming in her ears. Then, just as she thought the ice between the booths was beginning to thaw, the announcer's voice broke through once more, announcing the time for the competitions and giveaways. People in the crowd started to shift, some heading toward the rival booth, drawn by the promise of puppies and prizes. "Wait," the tall woman said suddenly. "What if we set up a joint adoption event? It could bring more families here and double the chances for all our dogs." Her eyes shimmered with hope. A cheer erupted from the small group around them, and Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. A partnership? It felt like a dream, but before she could respond, another voice commanded attention, someone who seemed less enchanted by the idea. "Can we talk about the logistics? This isn't just some backyard sale," the rival group's coordinator said skeptically. Sarah's heart sank slightly. Would they continue to argue over territory? Was there still friction where they hoped for unity? "Please don't let this moment slip away," Lucas whispered by her side, squeezing her hand with anticipation gripping them. The possibility of a new collaboration hung in the air. Sarah knew they stood at a precipice where change was tangible. How would they navigate through the challenges ahead? Would this tentative alliance grow into something meaningful, or would fear hold them back? As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in warm hues, she felt the answer was close enough to grasp and yet just out of reach. As the discussions continued, the air filled with excitement, doubt, and a flicker of hope. Sarah could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her chest. They had come so far, and here was their chance to transform a rivalry into a collaboration. She locked eyes with Lucas, who beamed with unshakable optimism. "Mom, we can do this. Just think of all the dogs that need homes." His words ignited a flame of determination inside her. The tension among the adults began to ease as they weighed Lucas's innocent plea. The tall woman from the rival group studied Sarah, her brows furrowing. "You really think this is possible, don't you?" Sarah nodded fervently. "If we can unite our efforts, think of how many families we can reach. It's all about the dogs." A ripple of agreement surged through the crowd, and it felt like the walls separating them were crumbling. The rival organization's coordinator, still skeptical, finally chimed in. "We need to have a plan, though. If we're going to combine forces, we must have a clear vision." Sarah took a deep breath, grateful for the glimmer of cooperation. "We can brainstorm right now. Let us sit together and think of how we can both promote our goals." With the sun sinking low, casting a golden glow over the park, members from both groups slowly started to gather in a circle, excitement blending with the cool evening breeze. The earlier competition vibes morphed into brainstorming sessions, colorful ideas bouncing back and forth. Sarah's heart danced with every suggestion and every word of agreement. Lucas watched wide-eyed, his infectious excitement drawing others in. "We could have a mini talent show, showcasing the skills of all the dogs," Lucas suggested, eyes alight with enthusiasm. The crowd buzzed at the idea. "And maybe we could each share our stories, showing the journeys of our rescues," another voice chimed in. Days turned into weeks as Sarah and the rival organization worked in harmony, their efforts gaining momentum. Every meeting drew more community members in, ideas colliding like stars before exploding into possibilities. The upcoming joint adoption event was set to be the highlight of the season, and excitement surged through everyone. Finally, the day arrived. The sun shone brightly, laughter floated in the air, and colorful flags danced in the breeze. Families from all corners of the town converged, drawn by the promise of love and companionship. Sarah, dressed in a bright t-shirt sporting a picture of Max, stood at the entrance with Lucas, who waved eagerly at the approaching families. There was energy, joy, a sense of togetherness unlike anything she had ever felt as they took their places. Sarah met with the tall woman, who had become a fast friend. The two exchanged ideas and encouraged one another, united by their shared vision. Just then a small child approached, trembling with excitement as she eyed the dogs. "Which one can I cuddle?" she piped up. Lucas laughed and pointed. "Max is the best. He loves giving hugs." Sarah watched as a soaking into everything joy washed over Lucas, already feeling pride swell in her chest. This was what they had fought for, a chance to create brighter futures together. Hours passed in a whirlwind of laughter, wagging tails, and the occasional joyful yip from Mac's families bonded over their stories, sharing meals, laughter, and a sense of hope embodied in the soft fur of the dogs surrounding them. Lucas demonstrated tricks with Max, drawing cheers and applause from the crowd, their small stage filled with magic as the sun set, painting the sky with oranges and purples. A moment of silence enveloped the park. The local news reporter stood, microphone in hand, her eyes bright as she concluded her report. This event not only brings awareness for rescue dogs, but reminds us of the strength of community. Together we can create change, together we build love. Tears of joy brimmed in Sarah's eyes, and she swept Lucas into a tight embrace. "Look at what we did together," she whispered, her voice shaking with emotion. "This is just the beginning, buddy." Lucas nodded, his heart shimmering with pride. They had witnessed an incredible transformation. What started as an insurmountable challenge turned into a crafting of hope as families began taking home their new furry friends. Sarah realized it wasn't just the dogs that were being adopted that day. While their lives were intertwined, they had woven strong, steadfast bonds through resilience and love, helping them rise above the shadows of doubt. Max barked happily, surrounded by children, their joy reflecting back at Sarah. It was in that moment she understood the true depth of family. It was more than blood, it was connection, community, and the heart-refreshing bloom of second chances. As dusk fell, promising restful nights after such an exhausting day, Sarah felt alive with purpose. The weight on her shoulders had lightened. Together, they had created more than just an event, they had ignited a movement. Their story resonated, echoing through lives far and wide, inspiring change and new beginnings. This was the moment Sarah had fought for. It was a moment of hope, community, and unwavering love. Filled with a happiness that radiated from deep within, she simply couldn't contain her smile. And so, dear friends, let this heartwarming tale inspire you to harness your strength, create your communities, and spread love in the world. For every journey, no matter how hard, is a chance to inspire, to uplift, and to find joy among the chaos. Don't wait not even one more second to dive into more amazing stories. You need to subscribe now to the channel to ensure you won't miss out on any heartfelt moments we have coming. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, share the warmth, and let us reach every soul that craves this positive energy. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. Your thoughts mean the world, and we want to hear it all. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let them feel every hope and joy woven into every word. The time to spread love and kindness is now.